Great. How's it going? Is anyone here? I jumped on early just to check and see if everything's okay. I can't hear. How's it going, Marcus? Hello, everyone. This is my first time, so I'm kind of nervous. I'm worried about things going wrong on the technical part, but yeah, Anoop should be joining in a few minutes. So I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Hope you guys got some good questions for him. He's awesome. Trying to figure out how to read live messages, but I guess I'll use my phone. Dr. Anoop. Don't call him Snoop. It's Anoop. I think I'm going to have him maybe start off with his near-death like experience, if you guys think that's okay, and have him walk us into that briefly and see and start opening up with questions from there, because that was a huge part of his journey where he's at today. What do you guys think? Thanks, Marcus. Susie Q, hello. Annalise, hello. Eden Rose. This is a little easier than I thought. I thought it was going to be a lot harder. That's like my biggest fear, is the technical part of this whole thing. The Connected Community's on. She has an awesome podcast. If you guys ever want to check her out. Thank you. I love his take on death. It's really beautiful the way he looks at death. The cat next door. Hello. It's funny. I don't know how to use it on my screen, so I have to use my phone to see the messages. Thanks for joining. Because I was in a lot of fear. I didn't think anyone was going to come. So to see you guys on, it's pretty awesome. So thank you. Anne Marie, hello. Anne Marie, I think you would really love Dr. Anoop. He's pretty cool. Love from Ireland. That's awesome. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it because my mind tells me something different. So appreciate it. I have Irish in me, Kilgore. My sisters are redheads, by the way. Yeah, he's coming on right now. Checking my email because he emailed me a few minutes ago. There he is.
All right.
Hey, good seeing you. It's
Likewise.
been a while. Yeah,
It's been a while.
we're live now. So
All right. Good to
yeah.
see everybody, whoever's on.
I apologize, but I don't know how to like. I'm trying to figure out how to show the comments live on our screen, but I'm looking at it right now with my phone.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you have a way of doing that as well.
Yeah.
This is my first.
Yeah, no problem. So should I go
Sorry.
to your Instagram page?
Brought YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me do that. Okay. Yeah, I thought it would be up on here. I didn't realize it would be. Oh, wait, there's a chat. There's a chat box.
Where's that at? I'm trying to see.
But that
Let me
says
see.
it's a live stream chat 26. Oh, yeah, it's here.
Okay.
I got it. Love from Ireland. Love your work. Brilliant conversations. Oh, yeah. I see them all here. Oh, this is fantastic.
Why don't I see that? I'm sorry.
So all the way to the right of my screen, it says people and then chat. And if I click on chat.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Live chat. Eden
Perfect.
says.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
giving a
Awesome.
hand wave. Awesome. So we can like do real-time conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Anoop, what do you think about like starting off with maybe walking us into your briefly with your near death like experience and how you got to this point?
Okay, sure.
For those who haven't heard your story.
Sure. Well, first of all, Boo Boo, it's always great to see you. I love when you pop up on my
Yeah.
Instagram feed. I love what you're
Thank
doing.
you.
I love you. I love what you're about, and I feel happy to share time with you. So it's good to see you again.
Yeah, I love you
Um,
too, my friend.
so in terms of my near death like experience, that was in medical school. Um, oh, you can't see those books behind me. I was going to show my medical school books, but I was sitting in my room reading, much like I'm sitting right now. I was in a chair. I was at a desk. And I had this book in my hand that I was reading. It was a philosophy book, as I tended to often read. And there was this moment when I was reading when all of a sudden everything went kaboom. It's just the strangest thing, I suppose. Literally, it was like an explosion went off, and it was like I was sitting in the sun. So the room fell away, and the everything fell away, and it was just the sun, and it was this brilliant, blazing, blissful orange blaze, saffron blaze, and really a timeless experience. I remember you've spoken about your timeless experience with the flower and that moment in nature. And at some point, I felt such completion that there was just nothing left. This was in my 20s. And so I started to feel myself leave the lifetime, essentially walk out of the lifetime. Um, and just when I was about to do that, this being of light emerged from this brilliant blaze. That was also me in some way, in some inexplicable way in language. And this being stepped forward and said, essentially, this wouldn't be fair. Not yet. There's still work to do, essentially. And that gave me pause. It was like pause on my whole life. And then that pause was all it took. Everything kind of re-imploded. So just as fast as it went and like kind of sucked everything back in. And then there I was sitting in the room again, but everything everything had changed. Like the way I saw, the way I thought, the way I moved, who I was, what the room was, everything had changed. It was clear that everything was structured in light, that it is different patterns and densities of light that and different, I guess, kinds of illumination, different levels of brightness and dimness, this kind of patterning that gives rise to what we call the physical world, what appears to be physical, from a certain mind view, from a certain perspective. And that began a long process of reorienting for me to what this world is, who we are, why we're here, and what is possible.
Mm. Did you get a lot of downloads from that experience or afterwards?
Yeah, I'm downloading all the time, brother. Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's like opening a channel and the channel doesn't close really. It's and you got to make room for it. Not closing can sound like a good thing, but sometimes you got to make room for it in your so-called 24-hour day, whatever that is, right? It comes in and it comes through, and you just kind of say, all right, how do we make this happen? How do we let it through? So yes. And the main one is really this download about the link between consciousness and healing and healthcare, and my deep love and desire to help co-create this emerging new health system now in the world, which is what I'm all about. I love it.
In your new Numacore that just you just rechanged the name. Maybe you could share a little bit about what that's about. Maybe we can open up with some questions.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. So Numacore is an acronym for nutrition, movement, connection, and rest. So NUMOCORE. And we came up with those four because that's really the foundation of health and healing. Health and healing ain't complex, It's not rocket science. It's not new. We didn't create it. It's as old as time, right? This is what sustains people, just like soil, sunlight, Space sustains plants. Nutrition, movement, connection, and rest sustains human beings, heals human beings. So we wanted to put that front and center. What heals is front and center. It's not the pills, it's not the surgeries. All that is complementary medicine. But primary medicine is nutrition, movement, connection, and rest. So that's what we're about as a company. And we feel like what's happening now is we're moving from healthcare to wellness because healthcare sees the human being very mechanically, right? Our anatomical model of parts. And because of that, there are certain things we can't do and we can't heal. A lot we can't heal. And so wellness has come along and said, hey, wait, what about the mind-body connection? What about nutrition, movement, and all those things? And that's what's wonderful about wellness. Now we need to see what the underlying science is that connects all that. That is the science of consciousness. And that's what we teach now at Numacore. So this is what gets us going. Yes, I see the cat says mind, body, soul, interconnectedness, right on.
Can you explain how the mind, body, and soul are all connected?
Yes. So what we think of as mind is usually the little cartoon pictures, right? When you're a kid watching cartoons, you have the cat that bonks the head and you get these little stars, or sometimes when you're thinking, you get the little bubbles, boop, 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 and you get the big bubble and then there's a thought in there. So what is that teaching us? That's actually teaching us philosophy. It's teaching us that the brain or the head creates mind, right? They don't say it, but that's what we start. Oh yeah, it kind of comes out of the head or comes out of the brain. But from a deeper perspective, everything that we call the body is actually a pattern of the mind. And this is mind body flow theory. So you can imagine that in your last dream, what happened? You had a body in your dream, right? And in your dream, while we were in that dream, if we had a conversation, we don't say, of course, our body is physical. It's 100% physical. You can touch it. It's solid. It hurts if you step on it and all that, right? But once you wake up from that dream, in that instant that you wake up, what happens? You realize that the body was actually 100% mental through and through and through. There's no doubt in your mind. All the dream scientists and philosophers can say whatever they want, but your awareness has shifted to such an extent that it is crystal clear to you that that body was mental, even though it was physical at the other level. So what we try to teach is saying there's a path to realizing this, that yes, our minds are powerful, our thoughts, our beliefs, we can co-create our world. This is all true. And as we go deeper and deeper into that, what we see is that what we call the body itself is the pattern of the mind. So that's a much deeper kind of mind-body connection, which leads us into a whole new field of play.
Yeah, thank you. What maybe we'll open it up for some questions from you guys.
We'd love to get some questions and talk about this more. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's here while we're waiting for questions. My passion, I'm an ER doctor. That's my profession. I think the greatest emergency, yes, heart attacks and strokes and the trauma and the sepsis and the people who are feeling suicidal, these are great emergencies. But the emergency that's underlying all of them is that we have forgotten who we are. At a deep level, we have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten what we are capable of. And that leads to all the other kinds of emergencies down the line. So let us remember who we are. That's where healing begins.
Anyone have any questions?
Annalise got it. She said, yes, the body itself is a mind, right? And what that does, Annalise, is that it takes you out of this duality, right? So one of the problems in our educational system is that it's always this or that, here or there, right? In science, it's like, well, I got to study that over there, the objective thing out there. And I minimize myself, the subjective, because that's bias. We don't want bias. We just want to study out there. So we create this split. And the thing is, in nature, there's no split. Nature is just nature, it's just blooming. It's just doing what it does. There's no real split. And once you realize that this thing called mind-body divide, mind-body connection, it's not really a divide or a connection. It's the same thing. It's one flow of experience that we've been looking at from different angles. And Marcus is right. We are waking up now.
And we got a couple more for you.
Oh yeah, we got a lot here. Okay, great. Eden, do you feel the healthcare system is moving in a more holistic direction? Absolutely it is. It seems neuroscience is making these connections, right? So this is what we talk about in our Science of Consciousness course, exactly, is how all of these things connect. If you look at healthcare now, so I actually went back and spoke at my residency program a couple of years ago. I trained in emergency medicine, right? When I went there was no talk of wellness, or very minimal. Now they've got this whole wellness bulletin board. They're talking about their lifestyle. All of this is happening because we're realizing that you can't ignore these things and expect to heal. And the other thing is, the wellness industry is booming, right? So if you think about it economically, the healthcare industry is saying, hey, wait a second, we can't ignore this anymore because these people are stealing our lunch. So healthcare is waking up and saying, yeah, we need to pay attention to that because that's what the public wants. They want to actually heal. So neuroscience is making these connections through the next question. The cat says, your take on psychoneuroimmunology. That's so neuroscience. What is psychoneuroimmunology? Psycho refers to the psyche or the mind. Actually, psyche is actually soul, but typically we say psyche is the mind. Neuro is your neuron, so it's your physical neurobiology. And there's immunology, which is your immune system. So there's a connection there across neurotransmitters and hormones, right? So the mind is basically how you feel. The brain reflects that through the release of certain neurotransmitters, let's say dopamine, right, which can give you a hit, which can make you feel excited, which can make you feel good. And that also works on your immune system, right? If the mind is at a lower level, then the brain corresponds and sends signals accordingly. And the immune system, we can also see the immune system gets depressed as well. So there's this axis across mind, brain, and immune system. That's the official word in medical science, but you and I both know, because of mind-body flow theory, that it's just one flow. There are no divisions. The reason they look like they parallel is because they're the same thing that we're looking at it from different perspectives. Lisa is a clinical mental health therapist. Awesome. Can you go more into consciousness creating reality? That is a couple day answer, Lisa. I encourage everybody who's interested to check out the course. If you go to numacore.com/science, we are teaching the Science of Consciousness course. But let me give you a brief answer here. The most important part is to know that the answer to your question depends on how you define consciousness. Right? That's really important, because the way neuroscience sees consciousness in most studies is very different from the way Eastern traditions will see consciousness, maybe different from how a psychiatrist sees consciousness, is different how we see it in the ER. So in the ER, we talk about consciousness as, okay, this guy got hit on the head. Was there loss of consciousness? Which means, were they not responding to their external environment anymore? That's what we mean by consciousness. But consciousness is a lot more than your external environment. In your dream state, you're totally unaware of the waking environment, but you have consciousness, right? And even if you're not dreaming, even when the mind withdraws from the waking state and withdraws from the dream state, even in pure sleep, which we do not remember on waking up, there is an awareness, there is consciousness that is present. It's just not present in the form of time and space as we recognize it in dreams and the waking state. And so because of that, depending on how you define consciousness, that's how you define how it creates reality. If it's just me and my thought, then, as my thought goes, so my action goes. And as my action goes, so my reality is created, right? That's the link there. But at a deeper level, if consciousness is more a state, so the state of my consciousness itself will lead to the actions and lead to a state in the world. And at the deepest level, consciousness is all there is. And consciousness is fundamental. So everything that is created is by definition created from consciousness. So there are all these levels that we have to talk about, and we will get to that in the course. How am I doing, Boo Boo? Am I talking too much? Just feel free to jump in.
You're doing great. I just feel free to keep flowing.
All right.
Perfect.
Feel free to jump in too. Lisa says, are you implying, Marcus, but we are waking up now? Yeah, brother, we are. Are you implying saying change in diet could contribute to the improvement of reality? So again, what do we mean by reality here? If by reality, it sounds like you mean the perceptual world, like what we perceive in terms of shapes, forms, ideas, etc. So does a change in diet contribute to a change in our perceptual world? Of course it does. In fact, I'll tell you, the secret is that everything contributes to everything. Everything is connected. So you can change one thing in one place, and I'm not even just talking about health or healing. You can change anything in any one place in the universe, and it affects everything else. Now, will you and I perceive it? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on our level of awareness, our state of consciousness, what's important to us, our life path. So many things are there. But the fact is, there is no fundamental separation. The separation comes from where I see a wall in my awareness. I cannot see past that, and therefore I call it separation, right? The wall of your house that separates the inside of your house from the outside of your house, it's not a separation because that wall exists in space, right? If space were not there, your wall couldn't stand. And that space is undivided. Space doesn't say, oh, I'm all full, this wall is here. No, space is like, yeah, I can hold the wall, I can hold infinite things. You can't divide space, right? So similarly, our consciousness and awareness and the cosmos itself is fundamentally indivisible because it's all the same thing. But it's our awareness that differs, and therefore we see these separations. And therefore, yes, wherever there's a change in one thing, everything changes. Just like if you were to create a whirlpool under the swimming pool, you go underwater and you do this under the water, just in that one point, if you do it well enough, the entire swimming pool will start swirling, right? Because a change in one place changes everything else everywhere else. Joseph, working in an acute care setting, on days you're working, do your own daily, oh man, this is a fantastic question. Do your daily practices change? Yes, they do. They absolutely have to, because when I go to the ER, one of the main things that exists in an ER is fear and pain, right? Nobody's coming to the ER for fun. And it's not just patients, it's colleagues too. It's colleagues, it's the management, it's the people who are making the rules and modifying the rules. Everyone has some degree of pain, discomfort, fear, because there is an underlying thing that we are not, for the most part, actually helping people heal. Yes, some step of the journey we are, and what we're doing is important. I'm not putting down what we're doing, but we're not taking them all the way to healing. There's like this dependency that's created. And when you have that, you have a lot of existential pain and suffering because people are caught in a loop. So in those days, as opposed to today, when I'm not working clinically, I have to do more things. So I'm more careful about getting outside in the sun, putting my bare feet outside, like holding my hands like this because it connects the left and right side of the brain and the mind and it closes the circuit and lets the energy flow essentially. I try to eat more fresh greens on that day, drink more fresh water, all those things I try to do because I know my energy is going to be interfacing with a lot of pain and suffering that day. So I need to adjust for that. And that took me a long time. It took me years to learn because when that experience opened everything up, as I talked about in medical school, I didn't realize all the implications. And then it's like somebody picked me up and dropped me in the middle of an ER. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And that took me a while. So thank you for that question, Joseph. I would love y'all's level-headed says, I would love y'all's insight, thoughts on autoimmune diseases, bodies attacking themselves from the inside out, and specifically what that says. So a couple things here. One thing is that we have to be careful about when we say that the body is the mind. Yes, true. However, this is not something to say that, well, my level of consciousness is low and that's why I'm doing this, or I don't know this, or this is my fault because it's my fault and I've done something wrong, therefore this is happening. That's not the path we want to go. The path we want to go is, if the body is the mind, then a change in the mind would correlate with the change in the body. How interesting. Where can I play with this? Right? That's the idea. That's the idea. It's not a mandate. It's an opportunity, and it's difficult. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm just saying we are amazing creatures, and we are made of light, and we are made of potential, and it doesn't mean that everybody's going to heal from all diseases and everything's going to be a utopia, because we have our life paths, right? I mean, this is a segment of the journey. This lifetime is a segment of the journey. So it's not like everything has to be 100% perfect in this lifetime. There's more good stuff to come. However, we have this potential. And so where can we play such that we might be able to fiddle with things and tweak this and see what happens, right? That's the opportunity there. The second thing is, in terms of autoimmune conditions, what we usually say in medicine about autoimmune conditions is that the body is attacking yourself, right? And I I really don't like that. I don't like that phrase. I don't even want to say that phrase again. I just gave a talk on this at a recent conference where there were pharma leaders, hospital executives, health insurance executives, and government leaders. And I talked exactly about this, about what we call the body attacking itself, quote unquote. It's not really that. What it is that there is some stimulus happening that the body is trying to heal, right? So when you have an ankle sprain, let's say you twist your ankle, right? Playing some basketball or just walking down the street, you slip, you twist your ankle. What happens is there's a stimulus there because there's an overstretch. So something tears, maybe a tiny bit of ligament tears, or there's a tiny fracture of the bone. The body says, "Hey guys, let's go. It's time for action." And they all hustle, right? They hustle down to the ankle. And what happens? The body gives you a cast or a splint, which is what the swelling is. A swelling is nothing but a natural splint, so you don't move that thing around. And in the meantime, the body goes to work, hammers and the nails, and it cleans it up and puts down the thing and paints everything new. And then after a while, you're good, right? So that's an inflammatory process. So inflammation is a part of the healing process when it's not dysregulated. In an autoimmune condition, what happens is that inflammation often is dysregulated, so it continues. So there's some stimulus in an autoimmune condition that is causing the body to try to repair something. But that stimulus is not going away. Imagine if you sprained your ankle and you kept spraining it every 5 minutes. Oh my God, can you imagine the condition of that ankle? That's like an autoimmune condition. We wouldn't say that, oh my God, look at that ankle swelling up and attacking itself. No, it's not attacking itself. It's just trying to heal this ankle that is spraining every 5 minutes. And similarly, in an autoimmune condition, let's take an inflammatory bowel disease like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. There's some stimulus that's happening that we don't recognize in medical science. We don't know what it is. And the body is getting inflamed as a result of that. It's saying, hey, we need to get to action. We need to do something, but it doesn't know what to do. So it stays inflamed. And that chronic inflammatory state is what we call an autoimmune condition. So many people, either through hypnosis or through regression or through meditation or through activating their engines of nutrition, movement, connection, and rest, they've healed from autoimmune conditions because in their own awareness, what the stimulus is comes into their awareness and they're able to then make changes to that. The problem is we often don't know what the stimulus is. So that's there. How am I doing, Boo Boo? Should I keep going?
Yeah, you're doing great. There's a lot of questions, so I'll let you keep flowing.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to keep going here. We'll see how long this thing goes. All right. So that's
Okay.
autoimmune. Anne says, do you find mind beliefs, traumas? And I'm gonna put a plug in. If you're interested, especially if you are a student of any kind of wellness practice, or you're a teacher, especially of meditation, yoga, Ayurveda, mindfulness, chiropractic, massage therapy, anything, check out the Science of Consciousness course. We go into all this in great detail, plus anatomy, plus physiology, plus AI, plus the major theories of consciousness. It is a huge part of creating the health system of the future. And I would love for you guys to sign up, pneumocore.com/science. All right, here we go, Anne. Do you find mind, beliefs, traumas are connecting into physical locations? Can I just put this link in here so people have it, Boo Boo? That way.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I don't know if it's showing up, but I put it in there. Are connecting into physical locations in the body via corresponding chakras. 100%, Anne. 100% they are. So remember, what does mind-body flow theory say? Mind-body flow theory says that what we call the body is the pattern of the mind, right? Let me give you an example. What is ice? Can you really understand ice if you don't know water? Imagine a society that is trying to find the solution to the water-ice connection. There's a water-ice connection in our society. I know there's something to it. This water-ice problem. I swear we can figure it out. I just don't know exactly what it is yet. That's where we are with the mind-body problem, the mind-body connection, right? What is ice? Ice is nothing but a pattern of water. The body is nothing but a pattern of the mind. And that is not reducing the body. Think about generally in medical science, we think of the body as, yes, it's an amazing thing, but it's an amazing machine, right? And as amazing as it is, we don't really understand the amazingness of it because we think it's a machine. But the reason it's so amazing is because it is the mind, and the mind is freaking incredible. That's why the
Mm.
body is so amazing. How can the body coordinate your sodium level, your potassium level, your chloride, your CO2, your BUN, your creatinine, your pH? How does the body coordinate all this? Because it ain't the body by itself. It is the mind that is doing all of this, right? Just like in your dream, how is it that you go to sleep and your mind just goes, boom, I'll create an entire world. I just created space and time, and I created all the people. They look perfect. They have their personalities. They have their history. I've created physics and biology. Just in that instant, the mind does that, right? That's why our bodies are so amazing, because they are the representation of the mind, and the mind is this magical dancing thing that's just doing its thing and creating our world, right? So that is why the answer to your question is yes, because what we believe, you're talking about the first mind level now. I won't have time to get into this, but at the level of the individual mind, right, which is what you're talking about, beliefs and traumas are at the level of the individual mind. It's what Anne believes, Anoop believes, Boo Boo believes. We have our beliefs and our traumas and all that, right? So at that individual mind level, yes, that percolates and connects through the chakras to the organs itself, right? So for example, at the Agnya chakra here, you have the pineal gland and you have the brain, right? At the Anahata chakra here, you have the heart, you have the cardiac plexus, right? You have the reproductive organs down at Muladhara chakra, for example. So yes, and mind-body flow theory explains it perfectly, because what you're talking about is something subtle that maybe we can't touch, which is beliefs and ideas. And then you have chakras, which you can actually start to feel as like these vibrations and energy centers. And then you're talking about the actual solidified aspect, which is the physical organs that you will see in anatomy textbooks. Hey, I see you got my book back there, Boo Boo. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I got both of them.
Oh yeah, you got them both up there. And then Stripe says, "What took so long to wake up, and why now?" Well, it's always now. You know, like when you say why now, like when else would anybody wake up? We're always waking up now. And in terms of took so long in what time scale, right? If we're always in now, then it didn't take so long. Like we woke up now. We're waking up now, right? The past is a dream. The past is a memory. The past is some kind of story and timeline. What we have is now, and we're waking up now. Thank you, Kat. Joseph, I love what you're throwing out there and doing with healing. Are there any teachers, and I get all the best presenting from this, that inspired or influenced you on your journey? Yes, of course. The first one was Swami Chinmayananda, who was a exponent of Advaita Vedanta, which is the philosophy of non-duality of ancient India. And I was steeped in that as a kid growing up. That was like my first education. And I loved it. I found it so much more exciting and interesting than school. So I would say he is actually the major one by far. I mean, I've read a lot of things here and there, but by far, you know, hearing his talks and being inspired by his work to bring this knowledge to the world, that was the major one. Marcus, I was a strict macrobiotic in 1970, still aware of the balance in all things. Amazing, amazing. And we're all connected. You know, the microbiome, the macrobiome, all biomes, we're all connected. As an energy healer, I'm aware that any healer is making the person who wants healing to find the channel to heal themselves. What do you think? 100%. 100%. We're not giving anybody anything they don't have, right? We're not giving anybody anything. Don't. All of us are of this nature. We are all of this nature of consciousness, of potential, of God, of truth, of reality, whatever you want to call it. We are all this. And so we're just reminding each other, you know, we're going for walks together and reminding each other. And do you believe medicine is moving towards energy healing, EMT, or hypnotherapy solutions to pain and healing? It's already happening, Anne. So there are hospitals now that have some kinds of hypnotherapy. Energy healing also. I think they've done some studies now in ICUs of healing hands, because in ICUs, the patients are often ventilated, right? So they're on ventilators and they're sedated. So they're theoretically not conscious, right? So there are people who do laying on of hands for these patients and they've seen improvements in some of them. So this is already happening 100%.
Wow.
What we need to go forward is really the science of consciousness that connects it, right? That's the thing, because the issue is that healthcare doesn't really understand wellness, because healthcare is based in medical science, and medical science is based in a physicalist philosophy, which basically says that things are physical and the physical stuff is what matters. And then, yeah, maybe there's a mind, but that's really just from the brain and from the body. And when you have that perspective, you can't really understand wellness and healing, because healing says, we're fundamentally of the nature of potential and consciousness, and we express physically. And that's why we can heal the physical also in this way, right? And healthcare and medical science doesn't get that. And in wellness, there's such a range. When you say wellness, I'm saying it like it's one thing, but the wellness industry goes from cruise ships to gyms to, like, to Dharamshala and the Dalai Lama, right? So there's an entire range of wellness. And so we need a coherent science to understand and communicate across all of these traditions, from allopathy to Ayurveda to meditation and beyond. And so when we have that, which is what we're developing and sharing now, when we have that, and when both healthcare and wellness understand this, then we are going to see an amazing new health system. And it is happening now. And that's what excites me so much. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you as well. What are your thoughts on chemotherapy? So chemotherapy, a couple ways to think about it. It's basically chemical therapy. So technically all medication is chemotherapy. You probably mean for cancer, because that's generally how chemotherapy is used. Again, all of allopathy, in my mind, allopathy, and by the way, I do bread and butter allopathy. I'm not trained in Ayurveda. I'm not trained in other forms of medicine. I'm trained in emergency medicine. Allopathy is the true complementary medicine. Okay, we've had it backwards, and it's basically marketing that gets it backwards. Generally, what we say is everything but allopathy is complementary medicine, right? So meditation, yoga, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, homeopathy, chiropractic, healing hands, energy medicine, sound healing, light healing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all complementary medicine, right? That's the prevailing idea, right? And allopathy is primary medicine. That's backwards, right? That's completely backwards. The truth is, allopathy is complementary medicine, whereas nutrition, movement, connection, and rest, pneumocor, is the true primary medicine. Why? Because that's what human beings need to heal. It doesn't make any sense to give somebody pills and surgery, but they're not getting the right nutrition, movement, connection, and rest, right? That's like a plant whose leaves are going brown, and we pull out the green paint and start painting it green. Well, it looks good again. No, what it needs is sunlight and water. You give it sunlight and water and it'll start to heal, and you don't have to paint it, right? Or it might need a crutch, right? If the plant is leaning over, it can't support itself, you might need to splint it for a while and stands up while you give it water and sunlight, and then you take the splint away. So that's like pills and surgery. You use the pills and surgery as needed, but you got to keep nutrition, movement, connection, and rest going. That's primary medicine. So chemotherapy is no different, right? Always, always, always adjust nutrition, movement, connection, and rest. Activate those 4 engines. That's what unleashes your healing potential. And as you do that, if you need adjuncts like chemotherapy or surgery, then by means use them as and when needed, to the extent needed. All right. The cat, what are your thoughts on fascia maneuvers for healing the body and releasing trauma? I think they're awesome. Remember what I said earlier, everything is connected through mind-body flow theory, right? So what we call emotions, trauma, beliefs, they are as much physical as they are mental, because the words physical and mental, frankly, mean the same thing. We just divide them in our understanding, right? So the body is easy to work with because it's a shared experience. You can see my body, I can see my body. So it's a shared experience. So it's a little bit easier to work with, right? So you can see things in my body, I can see things in my body, and we can work on them jointly. It's not as easy to see the subtle aspect, right? Which is what we call mind. And so fascia maneuvers, massage, adjustments, chiropractic, all of this, these are ways of adjusting the mind. We think of it as adjusting the body, but it's adjusting the patterned mind, which is what we call the body. Mm. How are we doing, Boo Boo?
We're doing great. I want to really just let you flow until we run out of some questions. I have a few myself, but I'll let everyone's questions be answered first.
Okay, great. Marcus, same as fever. The body is so amazing. Absolutely, right? The fever. So it's not that we have this trigger response often in allopathy where it's like fever, fever, get the Tylenol, right? No, it's like the body is saying, hey, you know what? We're going to heat things up a little bit here, right? We need a little fever going here because there's somebody else knocking at the door, and they don't seem friendly, so we're going to turn up the heat on them for a while, right? And that's okay. So it shouldn't be a reflex reaction to turn down the fever. That's the hypothalamus of the brain is like your thermostat. And basically it's saying, 99 is not good enough. 100, 101. Okay, about right. 101, right? And then you basically cook whatever it is that is not able to live in a 101-degree environment. Now, if you shut that down, guess what's going to happen? You're going to make it a favorable environment for whatever stimulus the body is trying to get rid of, right? And you're still an amazing being. Your immune system still works. So you'll still get over it. You'll be fine in a few days. But that much potential has been lost, right? That capacity that the body was growing into is lost, doesn't happen. So the next time that happens, the response is going to be weaker, right? So I'm not saying we should not use antipyretics, which are medicines to reduce fever, but use them judiciously. A little bit of fever is okay. All right. How do you navigate the ER with an open heart without it deeply affecting your emotional state? How do you maintain clear boundaries without building emotional walls? One word: practice for many years. One sentence: practice for many years. I was completely overwhelmed and out of my depth because when this shift happened, it was towards the end of my third year or early fourth year or something in medical school. Like the majority of med school was over. You're starting to get on the downslope. You're like, all right, you got some time. And then it was downtime. And then I got married, and then we moved to Philadelphia. And I was like, all right, things are good. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, living in the ER, living in the hospital, right? Ambulance and gunshot wounds and stab wounds and people dying around you and all these kinds of things. It was practice. And I didn't know what had changed in me. I hadn't realized how much things had changed with me and all the things that were flooding in now. So I was completely overwhelmed, probably in like a stunned shock state for months, in a sense. And that's when I really had to develop. And that's when this idea of the 4 engines of nutrition, movement, connection, and rest first started to come through. So I don't have a fancy answer for you. The answer is practice, and eventually finding the center within myself where that intelligence and love flows from, right? And staying and realizing that this is what I am, this is what I have always been. And from this place, I express through a body, through a mind, through a society, through this clothing, through English, right? Through a kind of thinking, whatever it is. These are ways of expressing my light, right? Boo Boo is expressing his light through this podcast. You're expressing your light through your journey and your questions. Each of us is expressing our light. What we are in our essence is light. And by realizing this more and more and living as this, then that's the biggest way, because there's no limit to what that can handle. Mm-hmm. Matt says the inflammation as a natural splint is a pretty rad idea. Yeah. And what's really rad about it is that it's true. It's pretty cool, right? Because what you realize as you go through this is you realize, man, the body's my friend. The body doesn't want me to pay $1,000 for the splint in the ER. It's just giving me the splint right here, right? So yes, the body is our friend. And I appreciate you saying you disagree with the term the body is attacking itself. I have no belief that my body is attacking itself. Only love dwells within me. Thank you, Anne. The cat, link in description, please. I own a wellness startup and would love to take this course. Sure. Could you do that for me, Boo Boo, please?
I'll definitely do that.
Core.com/signs. Thank you, the cat, and please share it with others. We are going to change this health system. Light and love, baby. Stripe 100%. Yes, you find the patterns, you find the solutions. Yes, cat. Quantum creation. Yes. And we will talk about quantum nature as well in this course, including the idea, I got to say this right now, there's this idea that why is everybody talking about quantum now? Quantum is physics. It's not spirituality. It's just about physics. And why are people misinterpreting the quantum and all these kinds of things? I don't buy any of that. You know why? So my title, my official title is emergency physician, right? In the hospital. That's my title, emergency physician, right? Does that mean I'm an expert on all emergencies? Does that mean that I have sole jurisdiction about the nature of all emergencies? Of course not, right? I know about a kind of emergency, which is like medical, surgical, psychiatric emergencies through the allopathic medical model. There are so many other kinds of emergencies, whether it's spiritual, whether it's like a disaster, whether it's a personal crisis. There's so many emergencies, right? So the fact that I'm an emergency physician doesn't give me exclusive jurisdiction on all emergencies. And the same thing for quantum, right? Just because a person is a quantum physicist, it doesn't give them exclusive jurisdiction on the quantum. The word quantum existed for centuries before Max Planck, who was the originator of quantum physics, adopted the quantum and the idea of the quantum into physics to talk about an experiment in a way and think about an experiment in a way that makes it work for him. So the nature of the quantum is not the jurisdiction of physics, right? The nature of the quantum through the lens of mathematics and the model of physics is the jurisdiction of physics. And that's why the nature of the quantum is an open question for all of us, for all of us. And we will explore this in the course. What is death? Do we die?
That was
The
that was
I
my
see that.
question, and I
I see
wanted to
that.
ask you. Sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to ask you because my father passed away. We all have loved ones that passed away, and I know your father moved on recently. How do you look at death?
Yeah. Death is a little bit like going from your living room to your dining room, provided you have a door in between, or going from your bedroom to your living room. It's basically changing locations. And when you change locations, you don't always carry the same bags with you. So you don't carry the body with you. This body, this particular patterning of the mind and the way this mind works, when it's no longer needed, you leave that pattern behind. And that's what we call the body. And you keep on going, right? When you go from, let's say, your bathroom to your kitchen, you're not doing the same thing, right? Hopefully, in the bathroom and the kitchen, right? They serve different purposes. You do different things in different places. Similarly, when you go from this physical location that we call Earth or this lifetime, and you move to another one, you don't carry the same activity with you, the activity of this body. You leave this body because there's another activity now to engage in. And that essentially is what death is. There is no such thing as like ending, like this person ends and goes poof. No, absolutely not. When my father passed, which was just over a year ago, he was on a lot of medicines at the end of his life. And eventually one day he's like, I'm done, no more. And from the time he stopped, it was 7 days until he died. And the day after he stopped his medicine, I saw my father again for the first time in probably 10 or 15 years, right? In the sense that he had been so changed by the medication, so modified by the medication that, in a sense, there was a part of him that had been lost. And the moment he stopped it, I saw this radiant, deep being. And I was like, Dad, I see you. I see you, man. And so he came to this state of awareness where he's like, it's time, right? Like, what am I holding on to? It's time to move on. And it was very clear that like he wasn't ending by any means. He was graduating, right? It's like when if you have a child that goes to college, you don't see your child anymore, but it's not like they stopped. It's not like they ended. It's just they're in a different phase of the journey. So you don't see them in the same way as you used to. That is what death is. Joseph, thank
Oh
you.
yeah.
Joseph, Marcus, hello, astrology. Love this. I love doing this. I would love to work like that. I know it is amazing. You can do it. There is or was a hospice here in the UK that allowed in Reiki practitioners. Absolutely. I mean, the amazing thing is this is happening. This is catching on. Like people know this is true. It's mainstream. That's why we call it integrative medicine now. It's all of this stuff. However, to really make it the new healthcare system, we need this underlying science of consciousness that connects everything. What about the importance of mental health care? Woo! Do you have a couple days, Lisa? That you got to start with what is the mind before you get to mental health, right? Health comes from the word wholeness, so we're talking about wholeness. mental health, often what we're talking about is in terms of diagnosis when we use that phrase. But to me, what we're really talking about is our nature, how aligned we are with ourselves, with each other, with the planet. If we are aligned within ourselves, if we are aligned with each other, and if we're aligned with the planet, everything mental health is taken care of. There's no other thing as mental health. And mental health is not different than physical health. If you adjust the body, guess what? The mind will adjust too. Why? Because they're not different. If you adjust the mind, guess what? The body will adjust too, because they're not different. So that's the beginning of mental health. We will talk about that as well in the course. And Elise says, compounded expression of trauma through the genetic line. Any advice for dealing with these challenging aspects of relating with close family members? The first thing is always centering ourselves. That's the first thing. Through nutrition, movement, connection, and rest. What that does is it gets the toxicity out of the system, the traumas that are built up. So if you eat certain kinds of foods, they will tend to accumulate in the body rather than be processed. You take out the nutrients and everything else leaves, right? But if you eat certain kinds of foods, processed foods and things like that, they accumulate in the body and they increase the metabolic activity. The body has to do more and more work to maintain the same level of equilibrium. If the body has to do more and more work, there's less work available to process your deep emotionality, your deep psychology, right? So that's how everything is connected. Moving the body through its full range of motion, again, helps move that flow of energy and release toxicity. Connecting with each other, with ourselves, with the planet, rest. All of these, nutrition, movement, connection, and rest, all of these lighten the body, clarify the body, release toxicity from the body. And then we get this insight into what is happening. Compounded expression of trauma through the genetic line. So what is it that is being handed down generation after generation? What is it through epigenetic changes in behavior and beliefs that has been codified now in the genes of my parents that is now showing up in me? But guess what? If it can get codified like that, it can also get reversed. We can crack the code also, right?
Mm.
Through epigenetics. If it gets codified through epigenetics into genetics, then we can bring in epigenetics on our side to undo that genetic coding and to turn on certain genes and switch off certain genes so that our life is different and our subsequent generations are different. So when people ask me, how do I XYZ, my first answer is always Numacore: nutrition, movement, connection, rest. And that happens at many different levels. We will talk about this in the course. The first one is the usual stuff: change in diet, movement, range of motion, things like that. But then there's level 2, there's level 3, and the deeper you go, the more your awareness opens up and the more these solutions come.
Can you touch more on epigenetics a little bit more for
Yes.
those may not be
Yeah.
familiar with that? Because I know my nurse practitioner over here doesn't even know, never even heard of epigenetics.
Okay, sure. So genetics, we all generally understand. Genetics, of course, comes from the word gene, and a gene is essentially your unit of genetic material that contains DNA. And DNA we think of as the instructions for our biological life, right? So we
Mm.
get genes from our parents. Those genes start to get expressed as proteins. So our body reads the genes like you might read a book. And once you read a book, if you get some furniture from the store, you read the book on how to assemble it, and what do? You read the book and then you act and you build the cabinet that you just bought based on what you read. Similarly, the body reads the DNA and the genes, and then the proteins come and circle this DNA. It reads it through the RNA, starts to build proteins through amino acids, and that's how your body is created, literally constructed from the instruction manual, right? That's genes. We all get that. Now you have epigenetics. Epi means on top of. So on top of genetics, what is that? That's your behavior. That's your thought. That's your belief. That's what you consider as possible. These are the actions that we take. These are the messages that we hear. That is that psychoneuroimmunology that somebody referenced earlier, right? The psyche part is the mind. So my beliefs, thoughts, emotions, ambitions, hopes, fears, loves, dreams, all of that, that actually has effects on our genes. How is that possible? How does the mind, how could that possibly touch the body? And guess what? They're not different. You see where this comes, it shows up everywhere. This kind of confusion that we have because of this false duality is everywhere. Once you get mind-body flow theory, everything makes sense. The reason epigenetics affects your genetics is because the body is fundamentally the pattern of the mind. So therefore, when you change the mind, the core aspect of the body, which is the instruction manual, which is your genes, they start to turn on and off. This is called epigenetic modification.
Thank you.
All right. Annalise says compounded. Oh, we did this. What is your perspective on personality disorders? Could it be the compounded expression of trauma through the genetic line? Yes, it certainly could be that, and it's also just this in this own lifetime. You know, in our early lifetime, what was our interaction? How safe did we feel? You know, how much agency did we feel that we have? How much power did we have to be ourselves rather than having to be the adults around us, having to be like them so that we could feel safe? Right. And I know Boo Boo spoke about this so beautifully when I spoke with him earlier about his life experience. So, yes, all of this could be these things, in particular within family dynamics. Spiritual Route says, are your parents receptive to your higher consciousness perspective towards their healing? What response do you get? Yeah, so my parents were super into this growing up. So maybe not in the way that I am into it now, but I mean, I was exposed to it through them because they were very much into Advaita Vedanta, the philosophy of non-duality, and I was magnetized towards it as a kid. I just found it super fascinating. So they were receptive. At some point, maybe 10, 15 years ago, they start to get a little scared. They're like, well, you're getting a little bit too much into this now. You know, it's good to be spiritual and all, but you're starting to integrate everything. That's a little too much. So there was a little bit of that. But they were all for it, you know, for the most part, they were all for it. And even, yeah, and healing is so personal, you know. And so healing is not something like my idea of healing, is not their idea of healing. What is it for them? What does it look like for them? That's what's the most important. Studies have shown that early childhood and trauma and education embeds neurons. Exactly. And again, Lisa, mind body flow theory, right? Mental experiences get codified as physical things. Why? Because the mind and body are not fundamentally different. All right, so embeds neurons to run to the limbic system and disruption of the brain's instruction to properly log on to the prefrontal cortex. Right. So the prefrontal cortex is where you have executive action, decision making, understanding, and what the limbic system does is we're simplifying it here, but generally it regulates emotionality. And so early trauma changes the neurons and affects the limbic system such that the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex, which is the thoughtful, conscious, engaging, executive function, logical kind of brain, these two can't interface in a regulatory fashion. And therefore, our emotions and our thinking are not aligned. That's the translation of this. Neurogenesis can encourage their instructions to resume. Yes. So neurogenesis is essentially generating new neurons, which comes from epigenetic modification, behaviors, thoughts, conversations like this, where we hear what is possible. So when we hear what is possible over and over, then what happens is that starts to change our biology through psychoneuroimmunology, right? And fundamentally through mind-body flow theory. And that's how we tap into that deeper potential within us. Are we still on, Boo Boo? I kind of lost your video.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure what happened to me.
Okay. All right. As long as we're still good. Shall I keep going?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Apologize.
Awaken, do you have any insight on how to improve autism traits that might be causing emotional imbalances? I don't have any specific insight because ASD, as it's known now, autism spectrum disorder,
Interesting.
I think it's quite unique to everybody. So I don't have any, without talking about individual situations, it's hard to give a blanket statement other than, as I say for everything, nutrition, movement, connection, and rest. There is a certain combination of those things that work for everyone. And a feeling of safety and the right nutrition, right connection is critical for anything, including in ASD. What's your take on circadian rhythm, light, magnetism, power of infrared? I think it all has a role, is a simple thing. I can't give you details on those things. Generally speaking, I'll give you a general overview on this, which is that the role of light is critically important, right? Okay, I'm getting a message here. Riverside